Hey there everybody, welcome to Also Bears, and this is the Toyota Corolla GR Sport. If I asked you to associate one word with a Toyota Corolla, you'd probably use something like comfortable, reliable, economical and practical, but you wouldn't be using words such as fun or stylish. But with this latest generation Corolla, Toyota want to change that. They want you to go ahead and buy this car, not just using your head, but using your heart as well. And I've had this latest generation Corolla GR Sport for a week, and I'm going to answer two very important questions. Number one, is this latest generation Corolla enough for you to buy it with your heart as well as your head? And secondly, in a world where diesel cars are becoming more and more frowned upon, is now the time to turn to a petrol hybrid hatchback? So stick with me to find out. When it comes to styling, let's be honest, I bet when you saw this latest generation of Corolla, you had to do a double take. I mean, I know I did, because I could not believe Toyota had come up with such a really good looking hatchback. Even the estate version looks really, really good. And what I love as well is, particularly on this GR Sport version, is that it does look really sporty. We got the honeycomb grille, we got the 18-inch sporty alloy wheels, and on this particular Corolla, we have got the two-tone paint job. I mean, I can't believe finally that Toyota have brought out a really sexy looking Corolla. But you can still see the familiarity, you can still see the family history. Now, we didn't have a previous generation Corolla, we had the Auris, and that wasn't a particularly ugly car. It just didn't stand out when compared to its rivals. But this just looks so much better. I think it's on a par with the latest generation Mazda 3 as the best looking car in its class. Now, if you don't agree with me, of course, put your comment in the section below, or click up in the top right hand corner and choose between this, the Corolla, and also the Mazda 3 as what you think is the best looking hatchback. But I just can't believe Toyota have done it, seriously. I mean, I just love the big headlights, they look really distinctive, and they actually match the tail lights as well, and it works really well in terms of design language. There's also little elements, I think, of the Mark II Mazda 3 where it had that kind of really nice hatchback shape and it just protruded a little bit at the rear. But at the same time, it's not form over function. I mean, you can clearly tell that the design is made to kind of push wind and air around the car and make it very sleek and aerodynamic. I mean, heck, even the roof has got a couple of creases in it. And I do love those protruding rear tail lights that kind of stick out from the bodywork. It's very Lexus UX-like in that regard. But then again, I don't know why I'm so surprised, because Toyota are on a bit of a roll. I mean, we got the latest generation Corolla, we got the RAV4, we got the new Supra, the new Yaris and GR look really good, and we've even got the new Yaris Cross. I mean, it's brilliant to see that Toyota have kind of let their designers out of their leashes and they can just go nuts with their pencils to paper. It's absolutely brilliant. So in terms of buying a Corolla with your heart as well as your head, they're definitely starting off in a positive manner. Now, I think that's enough of the outside styling of the new Corolla. Let's have a look on the inside. Sat in the front of the Corolla GR Sport, you are greeted by a very comfortable and very modern looking cockpit. Toyota's designers have clearly been doing their homework. Now, these seats on the Corolla GR Sport, they are one-piece bucket seats and they are as comfortable as they look. They even hold a big bear like me in place, and I can tell you right now that if you do a long journey in the GR Sport, you're not going to be aching at the other end. There's also plenty of adjustment in the seat itself, and you also get electrically adjustable lumbar support, but not for your passenger. The steering wheel also comes with plenty of adjustment in both rake and reach, which means finding the perfect driving position is actually pretty easy. Then interior quality is also a big step up from the previous generation Corolla, or Auris as we had in the UK. So we've got soft touch plastics on the centre part of the dash, on top as well, and even on top of the doors. There's even some faux stitching in there to give it a more premium feel. And then lower down we have got some fabric on the door handle and here on the centre armrest. And then if you go any even lower still, we got some shiny black plastic and also some hard scratchy plastic. But they do feel of a decent quality, and I do think they will stand the test of time. In fact, the interior of the Corolla actually makes the Ford Focus's interior seem quite cheap in comparison, but it's not really enough to worry the likes of the new Mark 8 Golf. But I just love how modern and how good it looks in here. I mean, the infotainment system is set high up on the dash, and we've got physical shortcut buttons on the outer edge, which is absolutely brilliant. And because it's set high up, it means when you're driving, you don't have to take your eyes too far off the road in order to look and navigate through the menus in the screen. We've also, in front of the steering wheel, got a 7-inch digital display and a couple of analog dials, including a rev counter, fuel gauge and engine temperature gauge. And then when it comes to storage space, it's actually not too bad in here either. So we've got some decent sized door bins. You can get a medium sized bottle of drink in, but they're not lined with any fabric, so any loose items are going to rattle around a bit. And then underneath the center console, we've got this little tray area, but it's not quite big enough for the latest generation of smartphone, particularly if you try and put it in sideways. However, if you put it in head first, it does actually lie in there really well, and actually makes sense, because if you get the cable from the USB when it's been plugged in, it just seems to work. It fits really well. Now, it is a bit of an odd place to put the USB cable there, but it actually kind of works. It's not getting in the way, and it's not too fussy to use when you're trying to plug in your cable. And then behind the gear lever, we have got a couple of cup holders, and they are of a decent size, but they're not, again, lined with any kind of rubber lining, so any loose items in there are going to rattle around. And then underneath the center armrest, we have got an additional bit of space and a 12-volt socket, and it's, yeah, pretty usable. And then we've got the glove box, which you've got to be patient with because it is really heavily damped. So if I open it, just got to let it do its thing, and then as you see, it's actually not too bad in terms of the amount of space provided. But again, it's not lined with any fabric, so any loose items will rattle around a bit. But I'm really impressed with this interior design. So we've got the infotainment system set high up with the air vents just underneath it. What I really love is that we've got dual zone climate control, and look, physical buttons. I mean, that's just a breath of fresh air, isn't it? There's no need to go into the infotainment system in order to change the temperature or change the direction of the airflow, which I really love. And then just underneath there, we have got the switches for the heated seats, and both the driver and front passenger get heated seats. And then just in front of the gear lever, we have got your drive mode select, and there is a dedicated EV mode button. And then just behind the gear lever, we have got an electric handbrake and an auto hold function. And yeah, that's kind of pretty much it here in the Corolla. There's a slight minimalist feel to the actual design of this Corolla. Now yes, there are a couple of additional buttons on the right hand side underneath the air vent, and there are a few buttons on the steering wheel, but they're nice and easy to reach whilst you're driving. And actually the steering wheel itself feels really nice in your hand, and there is a bit of red stitching on there and also on the gator to let you know that this is the GR Sport. If I had any criticisms about the interior, it's just the fact that in regards to letting you know this is the GR Sport, that's it. A little bit of red stitching here and these seats. And if you go for the top of the range XL, you also get these seats but with a bit more leather on them. And I think that's enough about talking about the front of the Corolla. Let's have a look at the back. Sat in the back of the Corolla GR Sport, things start to get a little bit cramped and claustrophobic back here. So that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got very limited knee room, and if I sit up straight, my head is actually touching the ceiling. Anyone over 6 foot is definitely going to struggle back here. It's definitely more suitable for children and smaller adults for shorter journeys. And then as well, because of the dark roof lining, it does kind of give this claustrophobic feel, and because of the sloping roof line, it does mean that the tops of the windows are on my eye line, so again, it just adds to that kind of hemmed in feel. If there is one benefit, it's the fact you do get privacy glass, and the windows themselves do go all the way down. Now when it comes to storage space, we've got some cup holders here in the doors, and they're good for a medium-sized bottle of drink. We've got some airplane-style pockets on the backs of the front seats. There is a little space here on the back of the armrest, but there's no USB charging ports, so if you do put your phone in there, then it's really just going to sit there. And then we have got the armrest that comes down, and we have got a couple of additional cup holders, so that is something. And then when it comes to affixing a child seat, we have got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats, but just like a Volkswagen Group car, You do have covers for the Isofix bars, but instead of like a Volkswagen Group car where you just kind of possibly lose them, because of the plastic bit sticking out, you could actually break these as well. So recommendation, if you are installing a child seat, just kind of put them in the cup holder so that way you're not going to lose them. But I'm a little bit disappointed back here after what was such a promising start from the front of the Corolla. But it does make me wonder what the estate version is like, if because of the sloping roofline, if there's any more headroom. It's just a little bit disappointing back here considering how good the front is. But well, that's enough of the back seats. Let's have a little look at the boot. Opening the boot of the Toyota Corolla presents you with 361 litres of space, so it is behind the likes of the Volkswagen Golf, Honda Civic and especially the new Skoda Octavia. But it is a nice square load area, but just be warned that there is a substantial load lip, so if you are going to regularly load any large heavy items, just be aware of that. Also, the bumper itself actually protrudes about 6 inches past the end of the boot, so I would probably look at investing in a bumper guard or bumper protector if you're regularly putting things in and out of the car, or if you perhaps have a dog jumping in and out of your Corolla. If you do want more practicality, I would definitely recommend going for the Corolla Sports Touring, as that's got 598 litres of space, and that's actually near the class best. But in terms of features, well, we have got some tethering hooks here and they do feel pretty substantial. And actually that's about it. I mean, under the boot floor we have got a tyre puncture repair kit, and there is a little ridge here which makes me think that if you opt for a space saver spare wheel, you'd actually have a variable boot floor and almost a completely flat load bay. It's just a little bit disappointing that there's a little bit more form over function now with the Corolla, and I just wish it had a few more litres to compete with the best. But if you do put the seats down as well, you do find there is a bit of a step at the base of the seats. So again, if you are loading any large heavy items, just be aware of that when putting them in. But yeah, all in all, I'm just a little bit disappointed with the boot space of the Corolla, but the Sports Touring has got a much more competitive load area. But I think, you know what, that's enough of the boot of the Corolla. I think it's time we take it for a drive. But one thing I'll mention just before we go, and when I close the boot on this Corolla, it actually sounds very substantial, so that is one blessing. Ready for it? That sounds like a big heavy boot and a lot of metal. Anyway, let's go for a drive. Once you get going in the new Corolla, first impressions are really good. It's actually a very comfortable car to be in, and it's actually very easy to drive as well. In terms of visibility, well, it's actually not too bad. You got some reasonably thick A-pillars, but I've not found myself looking around them at any junctions, and if I look over my shoulder, you do find there is quite a pronounced C-pillar there. Now, it's not as bad as the C-pillar you get in the new Mazda 3, but what's a little bit disappointing is that you don't get blind spot monitoring with the Corolla. But the wing mirrors are of a decent size, so they do help with the visibility, and actually I've not really heard them give off any kind of wind noise. So it kind of shows that Toyota have still got the emphasis on aerodynamics and economy on this new Corolla, so that is a plus. So as a first impression, yeah, this new Corolla does not feel like the Corollas of the past, and that Toyota have really stepped up their game. When it comes to trim levels in the Corolla range, you've technically got 6 to choose from. So you've got the entry-level Icon, the Icon Tech, the Design, the GR Sport, which is what I've got here, and then you've got the top of the range XL and an XL with a panoramic glass sunroof. And personally, my pick of the range would be the Design. You just get spec-wise everything that you would need in a car. All-round parking sensors, radar-guided cruise control, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it's just, as a result, it's just a really nice, well-spec'd place to be. You'll also get 17-inch alloy wheels with the Design, and I'm not saying in any way that this GR Sport rides poorly. It doesn't. It rides beautifully and deals with the bumps and imperfections amazingly, but you just know with the slightly smaller alloy wheels, it will just deal with them even better, and you'll have a more comfortable ride, especially if you're doing any kind of long distance driving. So that's my pick of the bunch, is to go for the design. But if you do want some sporty extras on your Corolla, then of course you can go for the GR Sport, where you've got the red stitching and the one-piece bucket seats. But if you do go for the XL, you do get those seats as well, but they have got a little bit more premium feel to them with some extra leather bits. So yeah, it's a really well-spec car, the Corolla, but my pick of the range is the design. Now, engines-wise, you've only got two to choose from. They're both petrol hybrids, and they're both mated to a CVT automatic gearbox. You've got the choice of a 1.8 litre, which is what I've got here, and a more powerful 2 litre. Now, this 1.8 litre has 120 brake horsepower, 142 newton meters of torque, and will tackle 0 to 60 in about 10.9 seconds. Okay, that doesn't really sound very astonishing, but again, you don't buy a Corolla for the performance figures, you buy it for the economy figures. Now, if you do want more power, then of course you can go for that 2 litre petrol version, and that's got 180 brake horsepower and about 190 newton meters of torque. So that will crack 0 to 60 in about 7.9 seconds. So yes, it is much quicker than this 1.8, but you will have to pay for it. I think it's about £2,000 difference between the 1.8 and that 2 litre. Now, when it comes to economy, and of course that's the bit you're looking forward to, it's actually really good. So Toyota claim you should get between around 55 to 61 miles per gallon with this 1.8 on a combined cycle, and that's using the new WLTP methods. Now, I do want a little bit of audience participation here, because when I picked up the Corolla from Toyota, I drove it back from Crawley to Milton Keynes, and it was about 94 miles in total. And that was with the car in eco mode, air conditioning turned on, or climate control turned on. I also had the radar guided cruise control, lane departure warning, all turned on and active. And I want you to have a guess what my economy was when I got back to Milton Keynes. Now, if you follow on Instagram, don't cheat, because I know I gave it away on there, but click up in the top right hand corner and pick one of the 3 little economy figures I've put on there, and I'll let you know what I actually achieved whilst driving the Corolla back from Toyota. So I can tell you that I achieved in this Corolla, on my first ever trip in the car, 64.4 miles per gallon, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I don't think, achieve that in a 2 litre Volkswagen Group diesel, and I'm talking whether it be a Golf or maybe an Octavia. I just don't think I could actually get to that kind of economy, and I am absolutely gobsmacked by it. So yeah, if you are impressed, this could be the car to make you rethink about buying a diesel again. And then the CVT gearbox, I mean, a lot of you are probably groaning when you heard that this has got a CVT gearbox, but again, I think Toyota have really kind of worked their magic on the Corolla. I drove a Lexus CT, for example, a couple of years ago, and it's got the same setup as this Corolla, 1.8 litre petrol linked to that hybrid motor and a CVT gearbox, but it actually felt a little old-fashioned compared to this. Now, as I'm driving along now and I put my foot down, I don't know if you can hear it. Yes, there is a bit of engine noise coming into the cabin, but it's actually well insulated, and it's not as drony as other CVT gearboxes and CVT vehicles I've driven in the past. It actually is not too bad. I'm happy to live with it on a day-to-day basis. Now, you're probably thinking that I've forgotten to mention what kind of economy I've gotten from the Corolla whilst I'm here driving it about in Milton Keynes, and I haven't. I'm just being deliberately cheeky with you. You see, I'm gonna save that final figure to the end of the review, and the reason being is I've actually reset the trip computer when I got into the car and started filming. So when I get to the end of the review, and I would have been driving this around for a good few hours or so, then I'll give you a nice realistic idea of what I can achieve and what you can achieve from this new Corolla hybrid. So what's the ride and handling like in the Corolla? Well, this is definitely the Toyota's strong point. In terms of ride, this rides beautifully. I would even go as far as to say that this rides better than a Mark 7 Golf. Now, I've not driven the Mark 8, so I can't actually do a comparison between that and the Corolla, but in terms of the Mark 7, this definitely rides better than it, and that's even in this GR Sport trim with the 18-inch alloy wheels. And the big surprise came when I drove back from Crawley to Milton Keynes after picking up the Corolla. It's around a 94-mile trip, and there's a part of the M25 which I absolutely hate driving on because it's just constant tyre roar and vibration just coming into the car that you're driving. And this dealt with those bumps and imperfections so well. It was surprisingly relaxing. I mean, yes, I could feel them, but it was not half as bad as what I was expecting. And considering that this is meant to be the sporty trim, I was genuinely surprised by it. But as I mentioned earlier, if you went for something like the design with slightly smaller alloy wheels, it would be interesting to see how it would cope with that bit of motorway again. But in terms of the GR Sport, it rode beautifully, and I was genuinely impressed by it. And also, I've been impressed with the handling as well on this Corolla. Now, yes, it's not going to upset the likes of the Ford Focus and Seat Leon. They are the real kind of hatchbacks that put a smile on your face. But you know what? It's still really nice. It's lovely and weighted with a good amount of feel to it. The actual steering wheel itself feels nice in your hands. Yes, if you do push it a little bit, you can kind of feel it's going to let go, and there is a little bit more lean in the corners compared to something like the Seat Leon. Again, I'm talking the previous generation Leon, not the new one, because I've not had a chance to drive that yet. But in regards to the handling, it is absolutely lovely. But the ride is definitely the standout feature on this new Corolla. It's just really, really good. But, and this is a big but, there is a trade-off, and that comes in the form of road noise. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that I can't hear any wind noise off the wing mirrors or the A-pillar, but I can really hear road noise, which seems to make up for it. And that is kind of the only real disappointment when it comes to the driving experience of this Corolla. If you are driving on a poor bit of tarmac, you are going to hear a lot of road noise coming into the cabin. Now, I don't know if that's just an insulation issue or if it's possibly a tyre brand issue. Perhaps changing the tyres might do something to help knock it down a few decibels. But when I was driving on the motorway, that was just the only intrusion into the cabin. But luckily, the stereo system on this Corolla is actually not too bad, and it was actually easy just to kind of iron out the road noise coming into the cabin. Now, if you do go for the top of the range XL, you do get a JBL system, but I've just got the standard system in this Corolla, and you know what? It actually does the job really well. So yeah, ride and handling are absolutely brilliant. In terms of refinement, just got to get rid of that road noise. That's the only fly in the ointment there. Now, with my time in the Corolla, I have come across a couple of little niggles, and of course I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you about them. Now, I'm not going to go over the road noise and the lack of blind spot monitoring again. These are just a couple of extra things that I've picked up on. So, firstly, the interior layout. I absolutely love it, and I love the materials that Toyota have used. There's actually a really nice upmarket feel in here. But what does let it down is the interior lights. They just look and feel quite cheap, and I would just love to have seen those little powerful LEDs that I experienced in the Peugeot 208. They would just lift the cabin a bit more and just give it a bit more of a modern look. Also, whilst we're sticking up here, there's actually no sunglasses holder, which is a bit of a surprise. Usually you do get them up here, and the only reason you wouldn't is if you've got a sunroof in place, but I've got no sunroof on this GR Sport, and just, yeah, again, I'm surprised that there's no sunglasses holder there, but it's only a minor thing. And then the next thing, and I think it's kind of the final thing that I've found is a little bit of a niggle, is the footrest for when you're doing a long journey. It's just not big enough to hold your whole foot on there. So what are my thoughts on the new Toyota Corolla GR Sport. Well, to answer the questions I asked at the beginning of the review, have Toyota finally created a Corolla that you'll want to buy, not just using your head, but also tugs at the heartstrings as well? And the answer is yes. They've got the looks spot on. I think this is arguably one of the best looking cars in its class. And I also think as well, because of that, you'll be intrigued, you'll want to go and have a test drive in the new Corolla. The interior as well is very modern and it's very up to date. I really do like it, and it's incredibly comfortable. Then comes the ride and the handling, which is the high point and the highlight of the new Corolla. It rides beautifully and it just handles really well. I mean, it's a huge step up from the Auris and Corollas of the past. I really am impressed with what Toyota have done with this new Corolla. It's actually a really good time to be keeping an eye on Toyota and seeing what they're doing, because they're not just building cars now for economy, they're building them for fun. And if there's one other niggle with this Corolla, in the UK at least, is that I don't think we're getting the full GR to the UK with the 280 brake horsepower, 6-speed manual and all-wheel drive. I think that's going to be reserved for the Americans, but we are getting the Yaris version, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. But I'm really impressed with this new Corolla, and you know what? As I finish up here, I'm going to come to a stop and let's see what I've done, shall we? I'm actually going to take a photo and show you, so hopefully you'll see it. But I have achieved, whilst I've been reviewing this, let's take a photo, 60.8 miles per gallon. And I'm hoping you can see that if you don't believe me. So that is really astonishing. I've been driving around in normal mode. I've not been driving around in eco. I've had the air conditioning on, the dual zone climate control. On a couple of occasions, I've had the lane departure warning on, but I've been driving around normally. I've not been deliberately being kind of driving like an old man, so to speak, and just keeping my foot off the accelerator. I've been putting my foot down when I need to, as you've seen, and I've just been driving normally. And 60.8 miles per gallon, I think, is really, really good. And that's going to be now to answer the second part of the question, which is, in an age where diesel cars are starting to be frowned upon, is it time to move to a hybrid? And the answer is yes. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the new Toyota Corolla GR Sport. As always, please hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the Corolla and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. Are you a new Corolla owner and have I missed anything? Although I like to think I'm quite thorough, please again put your comments in the comments section below. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I always advise you follow me on there as well for additional content, including live videos and still images. As I mentioned earlier, if you're an Instagram follower, you would have known what MPG I got from my motorway trip in the Corolla when I picked it up. But guys, I hope you've really enjoyed this video. Stay safe, maintain your social distancing, and yeah, I've really enjoyed the Corolla. I look forward to working with Toyota and Lexus more in the future. But have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.